Hey guys, it's Jake here with Etrailer. Today we have a 2024 Ram 1500 and we're going to be taking a look at and I'm going to show you how to install the Demco Air Force One supplemental braking system with Coachlink. In addition to your supplemental braking system, the other four main flat towing components you're going to need is going to be a base plate, a tow bar, safety cables, and your diode wiring kit. This is what our main operating unit's going to look like. This is what's going to receive the air signal from your coach and then transfer it out for whenever you want the brakes to be applied. You can transfer it back out of this box down to the floorboard of our driver's side. Here you can see our brake cylinder that is mounted up to our brake pedal, and when you go to hit the brakes in your motorhome, it's going to transfer that air signal back to your truck, applying the brakes in your Ram. Two other components that are going to come with this kit is going to be your air inlet junction here. This is going to be, we mounted it up to our Blue Ox base plate. It worked out really well. Our breakaway switch is also part of this kit. That is in case of an unlikely disconnect. This plunger will get pulled by this cable running to the back of the coach, and then that will help to bring your vehicle to a slow and safe stop. The last component that's going to come in your kit is going to be the wireless Coachlink. I really like this addition to the kit. They used to only have a red LED light that goes on the back side of your mirror. You may see it on a lot of your friends' RVs and stuff like that. The issue with those particular kits is that when you're driving down the road, you have to look into your rear view camera. And if you get a glare on the front of your windshield, you're not going to be able to see that red light. It's pretty easy to see at night because your rear camera screen pretty much lights up red. The thing I don't like about it is if you get a weird glare off of your windshield for your taillights, that might give you a false reading. You may think it's the little red LED, but it's not. This wireless Coachlink, I think, is absolutely awesome. You put it up here in the cab with you, and when you go to press the brakes, it will tell you, those three LED lights will tell you whether or not the brakes are depressed and whether or not they're staying on. That is the important part. If they are staying on red, that means that the brake pedal is in fact depressed. It may be just a little bit, but it still is depressed. The other thing that this has, which I also really like, is it's going to have a little buzzer on it. So you can turn the buzzer off or on. I've got it on here, and I'll hold the brake. It's usually about 8 seconds until it comes on. But what this does is if you have a problem and this light comes on, that beeper is going to go off and tell you that something is wrong. A lot of people think it's annoying, so they'll just shut it off. But I think if you're headed down the road, I highly recommend keeping that buzzer on. And if you're sitting at a stoplight, yes, it would come on if your foot is on the brake for longer than about 8 to 10 seconds. But ultimately, if you're cruising down the road, running 60 miles an hour, I'd just reach down, flip the buzzer warning on. That way you know if something sticks back there, this thing's going to let you know. This system is going to be designed for coaches that have air brakes on them. If your coach has electric over hydraulic brakes, I would highly recommend the Demco Stay and Play Duo. It's essentially going to be the exact same kit as this, except you're not going to get an air signal from your coach. You're going to get an electrical signal, which will turn on a little compressor that is in the operating unit box, and then that is going to create the air signal to send it to the brake pedal. With this kit, you are going to get the motorhome side of it. You will have to install it if your coach does not have an air fitting here on the back. If it does come with one from the factory, like a Freightliner chassis or a Spartan chassis, this is a Freightliner chassis. It just didn't have the airline that comes with the newer ones. So just check that out on your RV. If it doesn't have one, you are going to have to install this. I'd say arguably that is going to be the more difficult part of this install. The truck side's really not too bad. Hopefully with my help during the install that you'll be able to get yours installed. The motorhome side, I'd say the most difficult part about that is going to be to get into those tighter spaces. We have lifts so we can show it to you very easily. I can get to it easily. It's just if you're using yours on the ground at home or trying to do yours on the ground at home, it might be a little tighter. But with that being said, let's go ahead and run it inside and show you how to get this kit installed. To begin our installation, we're going to need to find a good place to mount our main operating unit. There's a lot of open space, but not a lot of great mounting spots. Some people like to put them on top of the fuse box. I think this fuse box lid is kind of funny shaped to be able to mount this to it. But there is a little perch over here that all I did was I took a multi-tool, and there's some angled pieces of plastic that are right here and right here. And I just trimmed those off, made it a nice flat surface, cleaned it off with some alcohol. We put some hook and loop fastener on here, and this stuff is really, really strong. So make sure you get some good quality hook and loop. And then I put another 2-inch strip on the back side of the main operating unit. And all we have to do here is stick this down. The next component we need to get mounted up is going to be our brake cylinder. This will need to be mounted to the brake pedal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get it mounted up, and then we'll come back and show you where we mounted it and where we are going to attach this foot to the firewall. What I would recommend is you're going to need to swap out the bolts for the longer bolts that come in your kit. You usually don't have to use these, but the brake pedals on these Rams are very, very thick, so you have to do that in order for this bracket to be able to clamp around the brake pedal. So I'll go ahead and get that mounted up and we'll show you. We mounted it to the left side of the pedal. You want to thread on your nuts, and I usually just use a 3/8 socket and tighten them down by hand. You can usually get them more than tight enough. You want to tighten it just until that aluminum bracket just barely starts to bend, and that's good enough to hold on to that pedal. And then you want to take your 3 self-tapping screws, and you'll put the 2 outer self-tapping screws into the firewall first. You can see I had to cut a little bit of the carpeting away. Put your self-tapping screws in either end first into the plate, and then take your foot and tap that into the firewall, securing the foot pedal. What you want to do is you want to leave a little bit of slack in that cable just so that the magnet that's in our brake cylinder has a place to relax. And if you have these adjustable pedals like we do, you want to adjust the pedals all the way out, so furthest towards the seat, so that if they go to adjust it later on, they can only go in further towards the firewall. They can't pull out, because that mechanism can damage this brake cylinder. Now on to our breakaway switch. To get your breakaway switch mounted up, we've got the Blue Ox base plate here, and it's got a tab here on the side, which makes it really nice and easy to get our breakaway switch mounted up. It does have a hole on the back side that's big enough to fit our wiring through, which is, again, super nice because it's going to protect it ultimately. I did end up having to drill a hole just to the right and a little higher than the existing hole that was in this tab. So to get it to line up with the wires going through the hole and for our breakaway switch to be square. I like everything to look nice and clean, and this should slide right through the hole in our bumper with our base plate. You want to bring those black and orange wires up from your breakaway switch. The orange wire we're going to leave alone for now, and then the black wire you want to connect to one of the 2 black wires coming out of your main operating unit. It doesn't really matter which one. The other wire you want to connect to the factory ground right here on the side. That'll take care of the 2 black wires coming out of our operating unit. Now we can start running a red wire. If you have a different color wire around home, it doesn't really matter. I like to just do it as it says in the instructions. So we're going to take a red wire and run it from here over to the battery. In order to get those wires through the firewall a little easier, you can look for a rubber grommet on the outside. There's a lot of different options, so you shouldn't have an issue finding one. What we did was we ran it through using the airline tube that has to be connected to our brake cylinder anyway. We made a nice clean cut on that brake cylinder tubing. I just would make sure that you have a nice clean cut. Use a razor blade on a flat surface or use some tubing cutters. If you have them, we have plenty on our website if you need a pair. So we just connected that up. You want to push it in. Once it feels like it's stopping, you'll need to push it in another 1/8 of an inch or so to where it pops over the O-ring that's on the inside of that seal. Out in our engine bay, we've got a red wire length that comes in your kit connected to the orange wire on our breakaway switch. Ran it over to the driver's side because that's where our battery's at. We connected that into a butt connector. This red wire is that red wire going through the firewall. You can see our ground wires right here. We're eventually going to connect that to this factory ground right here on the side of our vehicle. We'll connect both of those red wires into the 20-amp fuse holder that comes in your kit. Put a ring terminal on the other end. Eventually, it will get connected right here to the top of the battery. We've got our air line coming from our footwell of our truck. We ran it across. Eventually, I'll zip tie it up, but we should be able to tuck it in behind this wiring protector. You'll just want to take that one and run it into the air out. That's going to go out of the Air Force One into the brake pedal. And then our air in is going to come from the motorhome. or the front of the truck. So we take our airline tube here. You want to make sure you have a nice straight cut on it. Looks like we got a nice clean end there. And when you go to push this in, if you watch this lettering here, it'll go in and it'll feel like it'll stop. You want to push it in just a little bit further and you'll see that, or feel the pop more than anything. And that's how you know you've got it all the way seated. The first little stop are the teeth that bite onto the airline, and then the pop at the end is you pushing it through the O-ring. To get your air fitting attached down below that you'll actually connect to from your motorhome, it'll originally come on this bracket in the kit. You'll just take these two brass fittings apart, take those apart, this bracket will come off. You can put those two back together, and then you want to take the fitting off the back side of it, put it through the hole in your base plate. This is just how ours worked out, which is really, really nice. It had a hole right here in the end, and all of this should fit through the opening in our bumper. So we just connected the airline back up to it, and then connected the fitting back to the brass fittings. One of our last steps we'll need to do is to put our vacuum line in place. We'll need to put a 2-inch section attached to the operating unit. You'll want the black side of one of your check valves to go into this hose facing the operating unit. Then the white side will go out. We run it along, and then we have to tie it into a existing factory vacuum line that's going into the top of the motor. If you look right down in this area, you'll see to the upper right corner of the e-torque thing, you'll have this right angle piece. That is the factory vacuum line. So coming out of or into that, you'll have a 2-inch piece into the T. This is where we brought the piece over from our operating unit. Out of the T, you'll go into the white side of another check valve, and then you'll want a smaller piece to go down into the factory fitting. The nice part about this factory fitting down here is that this hose is the exact same hose that comes on it from the factory, so just pull that factory hose out, put this one in its place. Now with everything else installed, the last thing you'll want to do is take your fuse and pop it in your fuse holder. Now that we have the vehicle side done, we are going to have the motorhome side to do. If your motorhome has a Freightliner chassis, there's a good chance that it may have the Freightliner the kit pre-installed on it. There's a Spartan chassis that also has a kit for it. Just check if you have an air fitting at the back of your coach, chances are this kit can work with it. You just have to get the correct umbilical cord to go from the coach to the front of your truck. But I've already got ours installed because it is extremely difficult to see under there. It's very difficult to get it installed too, so we'll come up here and we'll take a look at it. So if you're doing this yourself, what you need to do is you need to come underneath your coach and find the air distribution center. So you can see we've got airlines going what seems everywhere. You're going to want to look for a green line. It's a very, very thick line. You want to tap into it. It does help if your motorhome is off, you hit the brakes a bunch of times until you can't really hear the air pulsating anymore. You want to take that an airline tubing cutter, cut this tube, and then you're going to slide this big fitting in, and it's a push to connect fitting just like on all our other airlines on this system. Put this T fitting in, and then you'll have a hose that comes out of it, and we'll show you where it goes on our tank later on. But right here is our metered air. So the green one was our air supply, that's our main air. The little black one here is our metered air. A good hint for you is that these fittings are only going to fit certain hoses under here. So it gives you a good idea of which ones it's going to be. But the metered air, you can tell it's coming out of that distribution box up there, and it's coming down into this box. So it's already metered from the coach. We want to take that. There'll be an airline that comes out of that and also goes to our tank. So on our tank side now, you can see there's two fittings on this side and there's going to be one on the other. This fitting right here, you want to put the metered airline into that. So we've got our little airline coming down from our metered air T fitting. That goes into this fitting. This fitting is for the supply line going back to the back of the coach. So we'll show you the route that we took to get it back there. And then on the other side of our tank, that is where our main supply comes in. So the whole system kind of works Main supply comes in, it's going to fill this tank up. The metered air will still be, it'll still be metered from the coach, and then it goes out to the back of the coach with this hose right here. As far as mounting your tank up, what I always recommend is look for a couple of bolts like this that are mounted up already. It really doesn't matter where you put this tank or how far you put it from the metered air and stuff. You just want to make sure you have enough airline to do it. But these two bolts were already here. They're holding this bracket on for this distribution center here. So all I had to do was just take these two nuts off and the washers, slide our tank bracket up, and then put that hardware back on. What I really like about this bracket that they give you from your kit is that it's going to have lots of different types of holes in it. It's going to have little round holes, it's going to have slotted holes, and you can see I was able to use one round hole and one slotted hole to get this mounted up. Now, as far as getting that airline run to the back of the coach, you just want to follow along with some existing wiring or some hoses, zip tie it as often as you can, and you want to make sure that you stay away from anything hot or moving. But as far as the coach side, this is going to be the easiest part of this install, is just running that hose all the way to the back of the coach. Once we've got our airline run back here, I usually like to put a big soft loop in it in case you ever have to fix something or make a new cut. And then you want to take the fitting that goes on the back of your coach. It's going to be the female fitting. You just take the bolts and washers and nuts that come with your kit, drill right up into this fiberglass. The nice part about this fiberglass is it's very, very stiff on these coaches, so you can drill right up into it. If you've got a bracket or something back here that you want to bolt this to, like we could have bolted it right here or in a different place on the coach, but if you have a better place to put it, you can definitely do that. This has just always worked really, really well for us. Once you've got everything installed, go ahead and start your coach, build the air pressure back up into the coach because we just emptied it all to install the system. Build the pressure back up, shut the coach off, and then we'll come back with some soapy water, and we're going to spray all these fittings to make sure that we don't have any air leaks. Well guys, hopefully this video helped you decide whether or not the Demco Air Force One supplemental braking system with the Coachlink is going to be right for you in your 2024 Ram 1500.